Hi, everyone, and welcome into the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman here with you. It's been a pretty tumultuous day for you. I know, Chris, with everything that you've kind of been doing. We're shooting this a few hours after Kenny Dillingham's very emotional post-practice availability on Saturday, December 13th. So there's a lot going on, as I'm sure you all know, but you broke the news this morning about Kenny Dillingham's contract kind of negotiations. It seems it's not an extension, but it seems like it's more kind of a modification, changing some of the terms within it. So what exactly are the details of that, Chris? You reported all of it. You broke that news this morning. So what all can you tell us about everything that's been happening with Kenny Dillingham?
Yeah, so Dillingham received an automatic rollover extension simply for having a better than 500 season. His last contract extension, which was ratified by the Board of Regents in January, included provisions for an automatic 1-year rollover every time that he has a winning season, and also for winning 8 regular season games. He earned a $200,000 a year raise starting next season. So he had a $1.7 million raise from 2014 when he made $3.95 million to get him to $5.7 million per year in base compensation. A very incentive-laden contract. He made a couple more $1 million more in incentives for winning the Big 12, winning 10 regular season games, being coach of the year for some non-performance bonuses like his graduation rates and his APR numbers for his team. And this contract conversation that's ongoing between Dillingham's agent and Graham Rossini at ASU is more of a restructuring that would, by my understanding, increase his base compensation modestly. I don't think it's I don't think it's a millions of dollars thing. It's probably more hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, and maybe reduce some of the bonus structuring to kind of move some of that more into base compensation. And there's questions about whether this contract, if it's agreed upon, would include a higher buyout for Dillingham in the event that he decided to leave ASU, or some new offset language with regard to requiring him to try to get another job should he eventually in the future become fired by ASU. He already was, as I said, rolled over through 2030 simply by having a winning season, and he got a contract, a bump in his base compensation. But we're in this world now, Gabby, where college football coaching salaries are skyrocketing. It's kind of out of control. Lane Kiffin's getting like $13 million a year for the next 7 years at LSU, and Indiana's head coach Kurt Signetti, we've talked about him in the past on some of these podcasts. He got a massive raise that's going to pay him like $80 million or something like that over 7 years. So Dillingham is going to make far less, even in this agreement, than some of the most prominent head coaches around the country. This is something that maybe moves him. He already was like top 5 or so in the Big 12, and maybe he nudges up a little bit, a notch or two in the Big 12. I think very importantly for him, he wants to make sure that his assistant coaching salary pool allows him to retain his staff, and that there's support staffing money that allows him to have the recruiting department and other aspects of what he's doing continue to move forward. He talked a lot about in recent weeks, after West Virginia in particular, when he had a lot of comments, he talked about really wanting to push behind the scenes to get everything that he feels like he needs to be able to be successful at ASU.
Now, it seems like every time it's been quite the college football coaching carousel this year, as we've seen. But it seems like every time one of these big jobs open up,
Yeah.
one of the first names that comes into most people's heads is Kenny Dillingham. We saw it with Michigan, we saw it with Florida, we saw it with LSU, other ones. Do you think? And he's always said, this is my home. I live in the same neighborhood as pretty much my entire family. Do you think that if they hadn't, um, you know, worked through this contract, given him a raise, he would have maybe opened his mind to exploring other schools? And do you think that this contract negotiation was prompted by all of the rumors and the whole coaching carousel?
Well, not really. He was rumored to be a candidate or somebody that some of these schools would have interest in even before the end of the regular season. I know that Florida was interested, um, maybe Auburn, a couple other schools, and yet ASU wasn't having conversations with him at the time about his contract and renegotiating aspects of it. That really came about immediately after the territorial cup. So really, this has been a 2 week conversation. That means, of course, that it predates everything that happened with Michigan's program blowing up, and any potential interest that Michigan may have had in Dillingham. So that didn't precipitate these conversations. This was already something that they were discussing to try to give Dillingham more confidence about the situation at ASU moving forward. And there's no way that ASU could financially or would financially compete with Michigan or some of these other schools if they want to pay top of the market, because that is almost twice as much as what Dillingham makes, or certainly $4 or $5 million a year more. We're talking about over a 5 year period, which is the most number of years that he can have on a contract with the Board of Regents, even though he has this creative rollover thing that could make it up to 10 years. We're talking about 30, $40 million difference. And so Dillingham, he was very emotional in his availability today. He's talked from the time that he was hired 3 years ago, where he cried at his opening press conference, all the way until today, where he also was emotional. And on Sunday at the team's banquet, he's talked about how much ASU means to him. And I don't think that I don't think this is an Academy Award performance that he brings up on cue every single time that he wants to have an emotional resonance with ASU's fan base. I think genuinely this is somebody who desperately wants to stay at ASU, understands that ASU is not as financially competitive as the very best schools around the country, and he wants to evolve the ASU program such that it doesn't take a backseat in any respect to any of these other schools who might have an interest in him at some point in time, be it now or in the future.
And there was obviously with the whole Michigan thing, and you just said that these contract negotiations have been in the works prior to when this whole thing with Michigan was happening. He was the favorite on Polymarket to become their next head coach. Was that all just kind of to clarify? Were those all just kind of rumors and speculation, and there was kind of no truth to them?
Well, I did hear that Michigan has some interest in Kenny Dillingham, and not that that means that he was at the top of their list. I'm not really sure where on a list that he was. I think that what happens a lot of times is you get alumni or media people that start banging the drum beat for a coach, and then that leads to a lot of gossip and rumors spreading. And in some cases, maybe there's a lot of truth to those things, and in other cases, not that much, if any. Dillingham was high school teammates with Taylor Lewan. A lot of people may know he was a Chaparral offensive line standout who went to Michigan and then became an NFL first round draft pick. And now he's a co host of a really popular podcast, Bussin' with the Boys, where he has a relationship with Dillingham. And you can imagine that Taylor Lewan is somebody, being a Michigan alum, who would really want to push behind the scenes. And he has a lot of media connections. And so I think that this was more of a interest that people had in trying to get Dillingham's name trending around the college, around the search that Michigan has to promote him as a good candidate for the opportunity. And then I think that just translated to the betting markets, Polymarket and Kalshi and others. That those odds started to come down a little bit last night. I teased in the Devil Sanctuary that there were conversations about a contract change with Dillingham. And then I posted in the morning, and the odds really plummeted on some of these markets. So, and by the way, none of this means that Dillingham won't consider some Michigan or some other school. It's just that he hasn't had conversations with other schools, SEC schools included, that a lot of coaches would love to entertain. He hasn't had personal conversations with ADs at any of those schools. He said that today, and he hasn't had any conversations with Michigan. Doesn't mean that his agent hasn't had conversations. That's what an agent does: is understand what is possible and then present that to a client. I'm sure that Dillingham and his agent have had conversations about what's been said to Dillingham's agent about some opportunities, but the emotion of Dillingham and how genuine that he is, from my ability to discern any differences between what he says publicly and things that are said privately or around him, lead me to believe that he really does want to continue to be at ASU and plan to continue to be at ASU into next year in the future.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked about before on both our
Yeah.
live podcasts is, he's the same guy whether the camera's on, whether he's with his teammates, or whether you're just, chatting it up with him. It's no Academy Award-winning performance or mask like you said earlier, but he's mentioned the past, or I think a couple times now, and maybe the past week or so, how quickly the landscape of college football is changing. He called it a mess last week and said it's an adult problem, and the adults have kind of ruined it in a sense for the kids. And today he said you have to pivot like a speedboat. I feel like the whole just putting things out there to try and get his name trending is kind of a microcosm of that. But on a bigger picture, what does that kind of entail regarding how quickly the landscape of college football is changing?
Yeah, he didn't say this, but the subtext of what he said, I think, is a little bit of disappointment. The A lot of people know that there was earlier this year there was a landmark settlement in the House versus NCAA case that was expected to lead to um, a more regulated NIL process that was going to go through this new entity called the College Sports Commission that was supposed to evaluate fair market valuations of NIL deals. And I think that a lot of people felt like that was going to lead to a more order around NIL, which is a separate thing from revenue share. Just so people understand, revenue share, we talked about this, but revenue share is schools directly paying their student athletes up to 20.5 million, or in the case of scholarship expansion schools, more than 18 million. And really 75% of that's going to football. At a place like ASU, it's probably around $13.5 million annually going to football players. And that can be managed and distributed however a coaching staff wants to. But then NIL, name, image, and likeness money, was expected to be more fairly evaluated by this College Sports Commission starting next year. So the Texas Techs of the world that have billionaire benefactors that help them put together super teams that were just more talented than most everybody in the Big 12 and many other teams around the country, that was expected to be tougher to do in 2026 and beyond. But it seems like what's happened is that everyone's disregarding this agreement to adhere to the House settlement and the College Sports Commission. And Dillingham said today that the money keeps skyrocketing. The money is soaring, right? So if the money's soaring Um, and ASU is not at the level of a Texas Tech or some of these blue blood programs. That's something where if you're a coach, you're going to want to close that gap as much as possible. And I think that Dillingham expressed that he feels better about the trend of at ASU of the university president leadership support for athletics and encouragement of their benefactors to contribute in NIL and the ways in which that might help ASU football. But I think the subtext clearly is that ASU is not nearly comparable to some of these other programs around the country, and he wants to try to get it there, and that's what he's trying to accomplish. But it's not what he wants it to be, and if it were, then maybe Sam Leavitt wouldn't be pursuing, transfer considerations.
Kenny Dillingham's name been a hot topic. ASU's quarterback conversation has been a hot topic amongst Sun Devil fans as well. So we'll start on a more positive note for ASU fans. ASU got a commitment from 2027 quarterback Weston Nielsen out of Bostra, Texas. He committed to ASU over 14 plus other reported offers. He's a number 13 ranked quarterback in his class by 247 Sports. Chris, he announced it live on the Instagram live stream today. I was on it through our Sun Devil Source account on Instagram, and I saw Marcus Arroyo just joined it right as it was happening too. And then he was in his Sun Devils polo. He was up there with his whole family. Also had they all had little pitchforks on their clothes as well. So positive trending direction. You got Jake Fetty coming in next year, and then 2027 you have Nielsen coming in as well.
Yeah, I think pretty clearly it's an illustration that ASU can recruit quarterbacks. Jake Fetty is a top 10 or so quarterback prospect in the 2026 class. He's joining ASU in the spring out of Texas. And now Nielsen, as you said, 13th in quarterback prospect nationally by 24/7 Sports. I think he's ranked 211th overall in the class. And he's high profile. I mean, he had, in addition to ASU, he had Arizona, Baylor, Cincinnati, Houston, Illinois, Miami, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Oregon, SMU, TCU, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and Vanderbilt reported scholarship offers. And he's prolific statistically. He played at the 5A level. That's, I think, the second highest level in Texas. He had over 6,000 passing yards in the last two seasons, his sophomore and junior season. He had 81 touchdowns, only 13 interceptions. That's a great touchdown interception rate. His team was 11-2 this season. He visited ASU multiple times. The most recent time he visited ASU was for a game during the season, second half of the season. I forget which game, but he brought like a whole bunch of family members, like 10 to 12 family members visited with him. I thought at the time that maybe a commitment was going to happen. He decided to delay that until after his season ended. He said that he really wanted to thank Marcus Arroyo and Kenny Dillingham. He said from his first visit, those two coaches made ASU feel like home, and he felt like he belonged there and can lead the team with those coaches leading him. So ASU stacking up quarterbacks, and of course, there's going to be more quarterback talk here in the very near future, I'm sure.
Well, we have a kind of an idea of what's going on with quarterbacks in the distant future, at least, but kind of more in the near future. Sam Leavitt still hasn't officially announced his entry into the transfer portal, but with him not showing up to the team banquet, he posted a very cryptic Instagram story today, a picture of him in the tunnel before a game with a song under it. It seems like all signs are kind of pointing towards he is going to be entering the transfer portal. When he's going to announce that, we're not sure. But Chris, what do you know about everything that's kind of happening with that, and where does that, I guess, put ASU? What position are they in as far as quarterback right now?
Yeah, Leavitt did let ASU know that he plans to transfer or plans to announce that he's going to transfer. That happened last weekend. and he didn't go to the banquet. I said that I thought that that was a mistake on his part, just from an optics standpoint. Like, go there, show up, announce that your plans are to transfer later, if that's still how you feel about things. He's told people around him that he plans to transfer. So this is not like a secret or a surprise at this point. But on Sunday, before the banquet, I didn't know. I don't think people knew that was going to happen necessarily. And then Dillingham's comments that Dillingham said as he was introducing all of the captains and honoring them at the banquet. Sam Leavitt's name was there, and Dillingham said that it would be cowardly to not recognize Sam for all of his accomplishments. And there were people that were in the audience who sort of interpreted that to mean, in a roundabout way, that maybe Leavitt had done a cowardly thing by not showing up for the banquet. So I don't know why it's taken him so long to make any sort of an announcement. I don't know why he's putting up cryptic stuff on social media. I think the best thing to do is just come out and thank ASU and say that you hope that the Sun Devils continue to be successful and you're moving forward with your career and or made what you hope to be or you think to be the best decision for your future. And that, by the way, that's totally respectable and understandable. I think it is a legitimate debate as to whether he's best suited at ASU next year or somewhere else that maybe has more NIL money that would be more likely to lead to a more talented roster around him. And I think that people around him want to make sure that he is supported to the maximum degree to try to allow him to have the type of success and future NFL draft status that he aspires to have. I think Sam Leavitt is a hardworking guy who led by example throughout his tenure at ASU and accomplished many impressive and positive things, and also did charitable endeavors and lots of things that were really impressive and worth complimenting. Doesn't mean that all your decisions are going to be the right ones or without flaw. And so we're just trying to convey, what we think about everything as it's unfolding. And I think that was a regrettable way that things unfolded on Sunday. And at the same time, Dillingham said that maybe he's trying to project confidence, but he said in his first media availability, which was for the Sun Bowl on the days run together, what was that, Monday, I guess? He said that he feels very good about ASU's ability to attract quarterbacks and have a good quarterback leading the team, whoever that is, next season and beyond. And so now we're going to wait and see what happens in the transfer portal. Portal's not open yet. Doesn't open until January 2nd. Doesn't mean that we might not hear some things before then. And if and when we do, we will, of course, share that first with the Devil's Sanctuary. And I want to thank everybody in the sanctuary. Thousands of posts, literally thousands of posts just in the last couple of days. People are very fired up about the contract extension or the contract negotiations that Dillingham's having with ASU, and we're going to keep everybody as up to date as we possibly can on everything.
Well, before we fully wrap things up, Chris, if I missed anything or didn't ask anything that you think needs to be touched on again with the whole Kenny Dillingham situation, ASU's quarterback situation, Sam Leavitt, if there's anything I missed, just wanted to ask about that.
Not really. Jeff Sims is going to start the Sun Bowl. I think it's a good opportunity to get a look at Cam Dyer and see what he's capable of doing. He was a very highly regarded 4-star recruit coming out of New Mexico, offensive player of the year 2 times in the state. He tore his ACL in a state playoff game, maybe a championship game. I think he wasn't really even cleared to be an 11-on-11 participant until maybe about a month ago. And we've gotten to look at him in practice. He's sort of getting up to speed. I think that there's been some intriguing things. He's a very good athlete. So let's see if he gets some reps in the Sun Bowl. Butter Tollefson is a true freshman on the roster. Jake Fetty is going to be on the roster. assuming that Sam Leavitt transfers as expected, ASU is going to add one or maybe even two transfer quarterbacks. And I'm looking forward to talking with you about what that looks like probably early on into the new year. So, between now and then, I'm sure we'll have another conversation in this format. And everybody needs to keep it locked in the Devil Sanctuary, because that's where you're most likely to find out things first as it relates to ASU football.
Well, speaking of the new year, what better way to bring it in than with the Sun Bowl, an afternoon game on New Year's Eve? Chris and I will be out in El Paso. ASU has a few more practices ahead of that bowl game. Sun Devil Source will, of course, have you covered through all of them. And Chris, yeah, like you said, everybody will keep you updated on the whole Sam Leavitt situation, Kenny Dillingham, of course, anything that unfolds, and Devil Sanctuary members are typically the first to know. So if you're not in there, get in there. All right, I think that's all we have for this episode. Just wanted to come on here, give a brief update with everything that's happened mostly today, kind of in the past few days. But we'll keep you updated. And thank you so much for listening, Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman, for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers.